was launched.
Good day, everyone. Welcome to another episode of AF24NEWS Talks. Again, I'm joined by my two panelists. To my left, I have Dr. Olabisi Deji-Folutile. She's a director here at AF24NEWS. And to my right, I have the editor of the paper, Dr. Olayinka Oyegbile. Today, we have another discussion concerning, politics. And today's discussion is about the supplementary budget. It's opening up from that. When we got um, when we saw the line items on the budget last week Tuesday, when the President Bola Tinubu presented it to the House, we saw some um, line items that opened our eyes. Like, Nigerians were very surprised to see certain line items, like a presidential yacht, for instance, and it became like a big issue of discussion on social media. The government, the presidency, first came to try and defend the decision, saying that it was for the Navy, even though on the budget that we have here in front of us, it writes presidential yacht. Anyway, we move from that to the National Assembly basically saying, oh, the 5 billion for the yacht, we're transferring it to the budget for the supplementary budget item for student loans. And even though we later heard that the yacht has already been procured anyway, that movement, we don't really know what it's about. Anyway, we just here at AF24NEWS decided to look at some other eye-catching, items there. One of the things we noticed was the amount of money that was spent this year, or that was budgeted just from this supplementary budget for renovation and refurbishment of the State House alone. And for the supplementary budget this year, that figure stood at 16.5 billion. And it's important to note that for 2023, there was already a 7.2 billion budget in the Appropriation Act for 2023 that was presented and eventually assented by President Buhari before he left office. So essentially, we're talking about 22.5 billion or 22.7 billion that has been spent on refurbishment and renovation this year alone. It's important to note also that the budget for rehabilitation and renovation is separate from maintenance budget, which happens every year. For the last fiscal year, the budget was 7.2 billion for maintaining the State House alone. We also had about 7.2 billion also budgeted for overhead, like ongoing cost of changing, I think they said electronic appliances and whatever in the State House. So I just want to have this discussion with Nigerians today. Let us understand what is even in this State House that they are spending so much money, to maintain it. Starting from Dr. Deji-Folutile.
Well, I think Nigeria State House must be the most expensive State House, or the most highly maintained State House in the world. Because from the story that AF24NEWS just did, it was noted that over 66 billion was expended on the State House alone in the last 8 years. I mean, 66 billion is a lot of money. That is huge. And I just wonder what is in that State House. You reeled out a lot of figures, and I have some here too. In 2021, 11 billion naira was budgeted for repairs of the residential apartments and offices in the State House. I said 21 billion. 16.5 billion was budgeted for renovation this year, and that is even the highest in the last 8 years. It means that whatever it was in the past This one is even now going the extra. This one is extra 16.5 billion naira. And this is despite this 7.3 billion that was earmarked for the State House in 2023 Act. In 2022, 5 billion was earmarked for the State House in the budget. 2023 also 7.2 billion was earmarked for routine maintenance. And when you now look at everything, so when you look at everything together and you now look at that 16.5 billion that is in this supplementary budget, in the month of November, when the year is almost ending, you just wonder that what are they supplementing? What is it about this our own State House that is so special, that is so big deal, that in fact when Nigerians are dying of hunger, we can still have 16.5 billion for supplementary budget within 2 months. I don't understand though. I don't really understand. Maybe Dr. Oyegbile understands what is in that State House that is consuming money like that. Or maybe that State House is different from every other part of Nigeria. Because I don't think if this is the way Nigeria is maintained, or Nigerians are maintained, I don't think we'll be complaining. It's just too expensive. And it's because we have not really sat down to actually look at this thing. Looking at 60-something billion in 8 years, maybe it's you tend to understand this issue better. Nigerians were just talking about the yards and all of that, which people concentrated on that. It's like, even that, as bad as that was, it's like what Yorubas will say, you live leprosy and you are dealing with ringworm. Because the bigger problem is this humongous amount that we are budgeting all the time. The only conclusion I can reach is that State House is a channel through which money is being taken out to service maybe some people. Otherwise, I don't see what 66 billion in 8 years. Last week I was talking about all the money I've seen in my life. Don't even let me come to this billion so that I don't faint.
Well, I'm still trying to wrap my head around all these figures. As I always say, I'm not very good with figures, but at least when I see, I know what is big. It is either the presidency, or they are telling us that Nigeria has the most destructive presidential family in the world. What do I mean? If you use this much just to maintain or to refurbish a presidential palace in every 4 years or in every time, then it means that people we elect to live in that house are very destructive. But checking from the last occupants of the presidential Aso Villa, that have the presidents get there and they don't have teenagers as children. Neither do they have small children. Because if you have small children in a house, you might say that, okay, they might spoil things, they might deface the wall and all that. So you will need to do refurbishing and all that. But all the presidents that we have had are either grandfathers or they don't have teenagers living with them. So what exactly, or is it that the Aso Villa, the materials that are used to build or to furnish the place are substandard? So it must be changed every 4 years or every year, or the frequency with it is changed. Because up till now, if, as Madam has rightly observed, in 2022, they said they used about 5.2 billion. 2023, 7.2 billion. And now, in this same 2023, we are using 16.5 billion, which is the highest in the last 8 years. So what exactly are they maintaining? What is the problem in that Aso Villa that they need all that money? I mean, it's the same thing when you look at, you hear that they budgeted billions for feeding. Although a presidential aide came out the other time to say that, well, we should not look at it that maybe the presidential, whatever that the president or the presidential family are gluttonous, that they use that to entertain visitors and all that. But the question is, even in our own private homes, do we spend this much to entertain visitors around the year? Yes, the Aso Villa, we have more visitors. I don't have doubt about that. Do we spend that much to maintain our private homes in those years? So you spend so much to refurbish the Aso Villa. You spend so much to feed the presidential family of visitors, as they said. And then you ask citizens to understand, to cut down their own appetite. But at the presidential level or at the governmental level, they are not ready to cut down their own appetite. How does that work? We must find a way to make this thing work. I mean, the money that we are spending on government or governance in Nigeria is getting too much, and people are getting tired. A lot of people are hungry. If you know the number of people who call or who send message that they have no money to eat, they have no money to buy medication, then you ask yourself, is it not the same presidential villa that the wife of the former president said, despite all the money budgeted for
the clinic,
there was no single Panadol or injection, or what do they call it, syringe in the hospital? So where does this money go? Is it a conduit pipe? We must find an answer to this.
Thank you very much, sir. I just want to give some context to what we are talking about here. In the United States of America, about $100,000 is set aside for every new administration to overhaul the White House, the Oval Office, and the residential area of the White House. And that's about 90 million naira. And when these administrations pay more money than that to revamp the house, they pay from their pocket. According to New York Times, the Obamas actually paid for their own renovation by themselves, because when they were coming into office, they were America was just coming out of an economic crisis, and the Obamas actually eventually spent about $1 million or so on revamping the White House, but paid off out of their pocket for that project. The same thing happened again when Joe Biden was um, coming into office, and also with Trump as well. They spent similar figures, about 1.6, $1.7 million to revamp the White House. And when they spent above the limit, the $100,000 limit, they actually paid from their pockets. And the most intriguing statistic we have is actually that when the Truman administration in the United States wanted to conduct the overhaul of the White House after the Great Depression and the World War, they actually, it was a very hostile situation, because the budget at the time was about $1 million and about $400,000 actually, and it was a big deal. It was, they had like congressional hearings. It was not, it was frowned upon, and this is despite the fact that the house had gone through like a huge fire. It had collapsed parts of the building had collapsed. They needed to install a new third wing, a new third floor. It was such a massive project. Eventually, when we looked at the cost of that project in today's dollars, it took about $61 million to complete. Judging from what we've just calculated for how much the presidential villa or the state house has used on renovations in the last 8 years, we still spent more money
Hmm.
than that revamp,
Wow.
despite the fact that this was something that there was a fire, there was a whole, the entire interior of the house was literally ripped out of the house to install a new interior. The project took about 3 4 years to complete. The family, from the time that it was budgeted for to the time that they could even start the project, was another 3 years, because of how serious of a project it is. And yet they still spent less money in today's dollars,
Mm.
adjusted for inflation, than we've spent on revamping the state house in the last 8 years. So I just want to talk to Dr. Deji-Folutile to just, what do you think? What kind of image do you think that presents us as Nigerians?
Well, I think you have said it all. It shows how it just shows that here we our own type of democracy is different from what obtains in these developed parts of the country. For example, I've not seen or heard of any president in Nigeria that actually contemplated using their money to revamp the state house. No. Then I have also not seen any in the past looking at economic indices to determine what is budgeted for state house or for the benefits of the first family, unlike what you have just described here. I think from what you have said, any conclusion that anybody can reach is the fact that Nigeria, our leaders don't actually think about us, neither do they think about the economy, but they just think about themselves. Because that is what I can just get from this picture. It shows that for us, it is about the satisfaction of our leaders and nothing about what the circumstances, the economic circumstances, or even what people are feeling. It doesn't really matter, because this is not even the time to even do any supplementary budget in the month of November, for that matter. And it has shown clearly that that money has even been expended, because for example, Senator Udume told us that even the yacht that we are saying that the money is will be used for students loan. You know, these our leaders, they know us as Nigerians. I think they just know that we just give them any ela, you know, like all those when you want to deceive children, just give them anything, because they knew that that money was already spent. Was it not in this our meeting, our editorial meeting on Friday, that one of our directors was suggesting that this money will probably have been spent?
Yeah.
He actually said that before Udume came out to tell us that the yacht had been bought. So, and they knew. Otherwise, why are you making supplementary budget in the month of November, when the year has almost run out? So it's just unfortunate, really. And I don't know where they pick our own leaders from, because obviously there is nothing that suggests good leadership traits in this kind of attitude. And how do you now want people will say that Nigerians should be they should honor their nation, patriotism, they should be patriotic. How do you get patriotic citizens when you are suffering and your leaders don't even identify with you? You have leaders that are just doing what they like, spending the little resources available in the country as they want it, and you are now saying that we should respect them. You are hungry, yet these people are feeding fat. Can any American president even try this one in this period of economic that even people that are professors are hungry? Who can try it? They can't try it. So back to your question, it suggests that we are jokers in Nigeria. We are not serious minded, and it's like even the people themselves, our leaders are taking on so much for a ride. They think we cannot do them anything, that they can get away with anything, and unfortunately too, they get away with daylight murder. But what can we do? All we can do is to continue to do our own analysis and pray that one day something will change.
That brings us to the end of today's episode. If you liked today's episode, please like the video, comment your thoughts, share the video, and also subscribe to AF24 News Stories on YouTube for more videos like this.